For not only you that have been working really hard this afternoon, but also for all the volunteers that have helped us in the past 2 months. So if you volunteer for this conference, can you please raise your hand? Yes. Thank you very much. Yes. We would also like to thank the faculty members that have been supporting us. Marty, thank you a lot. All the pizzas and the tables and everything, that's on Marty and Ed also. We would like to thank Carlos and Wesley, who are also here. They are my advisors for the PhD, so they've been through this a lot. Crystal Vanel, who's going to present tomorrow, is going to be a speaker there, so she's been also mentoring us a lot. We'd like to thank Farmer's Fridge for the snacks this afternoon. And Marshall's Landing for hosting this panel tonight. Yeah. We'd also like to thank Dennis, our dean, right there, who has been supported. And Lauren Forlano, who I know she's probably, yeah, right there. She's another faculty member. With that said, we would like to introduce you to Francesca Zampollo. So I have to tell you this, I'm a big fan of her work. So when I joined ID, I actually started to look at, oh, what is food and design? And then just Google it. And then her school is one of the first things that comes up, and I start learning a lot. So she's done an amazing job that hopefully she's going to share a little bit with you. So she flew all the way from Italy? France. Oh, that's from Europe, right? And we are very, very happy to have her here. She's a PhD that has been exploring a lot of the work on food and design. Right? And she has an online school of food design. So please give a hand of applause for Francesca.
I'm Italian, I need my hands to talk, so I asked for this to be brought here. I'm also live on my YouTube channel, that's why you see these and these. So say hello, everybody. Okay. Well, you look wonderful. Look at you. If you guys want to, on the back, you want to come here and sit very close to me, that's fine. There's space. There's space enough for everybody. And do you hear me, or do I have to speak like this? Oh, jeez. Okay, that's not uncomfortable at all. I am super excited to be here for this type of conference, and I say type of conference because if you've been at other conferences where people talk, you see that here is more do, and I guess I and a couple of other people during the 3 days will be providing a bit of that talk. So before we start, I would like to ask you to take one of these things and pass them around and answer the question that you'll see in the next 30 to 40 minutes, and everything will be revealed at some point. Thank you. Okay, so usually when I start my presentations, I like to start with a nice, heartwarming story. But I think that today, because of the nature of this event, the only story that I can tell you is this. Of the 6 billion pounds of produce that is wasted each year in the USA, many of these fruits and vegetables are discarded because of their appearance. A single restaurant can produce from 25,000 to 75,000 pounds of waste each year. 84% of unused food in American restaurants end up being disposed of. Only 14% is recycled and 1.4% is donated. And yet in this country, 41 million people struggle with hunger. The contribution of food wastage emission to global warming is equivalent to transport emissions worldwide. In other words, if food waste were a country, it would be the third biggest emitting country in the world. In urban areas, fruit and nut trees often go unharvested because people either don't realize that the fruit is edible or because they think it's contaminated, despite research that says that it's perfectly edible. Confusion over the meaning of date label is estimated to account for 20% of consumer waste of safe edible food. 1.4 billion hectares of food, 28% of the world's agricultural area, is used annually to produce food that is going to be wasted. Agriculture and animal farming are the main causes of deforestation. 48 football fields of trees are lost every minute. About half the world's tropical forest has been cleared. Since the 1600s, 90% of the USA indigenous forest has been destroyed. Up to 28,000 species can go extinct in the next 25 years due to deforestation. If we continue like this, by the year 2030, we might only have 10% of rainforest, and it can all disappear in 100 years. Food waste consumes 21% of fresh water. In the meantime, 844 million people in the world don't have access to clear water. Food packaging is approximately 50% of total packaging waste, and 90% of all seabirds have plastic in their stomachs. A recent study that actually came out in September looked for plastic contamination in the tap water of cities around the world. 83% of all samples were contaminated with plastic fibers. USA had the highest contamination rate at 94%. We are drinking plastic every day. In 2014, only 9.5% of plastic material was recycled in the USA, 15% was combusted for energy, and 75% was sent to landfills. It takes 500 years for plastic to decompose in the landfill. In 2013, 59% of beer and soft drink bottles and 66% of wine and liquor bottles were not recycled. It takes glass in landfill from 1 to 2 million years to decompose. And this is just about food itself and in their packaging without considering cooking equipment, kitchenware, tableware, furniture for the eating environment, etc. Because to me, when we talk about food waste, we're not just talking about the food scraps, the biodegradable organic materials, especially when we talk about food systems. A system is made of a whole lot of things, of tangible stuff, of which food, the edible stuff, is only one piece. So for me, it's important to have this holistic perspective on food waste. So basically, we keep using an enormous amount of material, energies, and resources to make food that is going to be thrown away, to bake packaging that is going to be thrown away. And basically, we keep taking from this planet way more than we should. In 2017, Earth Overshoot Day was on August 2, which means that since August 2, we have been taking from the planet more than the planet can give us in 1 year. And we have been doing this since 1971. So I know that it's likely that none of this was new to you, none of these numbers were new to you, and I know that I'm saying nothing new here. But the reason why I wanted to tell this story is because we need to remember. We need to remember what is at stake. We need to take the time and remember what we have done to this planet and continue doing to this planet, so that we can remember why there are so many people working to make this a better planet, working to alleviate these issues, so that we can remember why there are events like this and conferences like this with people like you in this room, so that you can remember why you came here for these 3 days. These that I'm looking at right now, these are the people, you are the people who want to make this a better planet. And despite you already are here aware of this, I think it's important to take the time to remember why we are doing this. So the reason why I've been brought here, I guess, is because I need to tell you the story of what food design can do to solve these problems, right? What food design has done to take us towards a more sustainable and definitely greener future. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you some examples of what food design has done so far to make this a better place, to make this a better world, and what it has done to make this a world with less rubbish. So here are a few examples. Yep. 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 That one too. Yep. A whole lot of products that have been designed to make this a better world, and the world with less rubbish. Like this thing, right? Because suddenly these two are completely useless, so we need that, whatever that is. Or this thing, this is a USB cup warmer, because why should you drink your coffee while it's still warm, right? Or this thing, I mean, how many melons do you eat every day to justify buying something like that? Or why do you feel the need to shape rice into cubes? Or, yeah, I don't know what to say about that. Or this stuff, right? And maybe you're thinking, well, you know, actually, no. I forbid you from indulging into like these. These are products that use a lot of energy and resources and material to be thrown away. This is the stuff that if you buy it or if somebody gives it to you as a very nice Christmas present, you use it once or twice and then you forget about it in the last corner of your kitchen. Isn't that right? So this is what food design has done so far and unfortunately keeps doing. But luckily, this is not the only type of stuff that food design does. So let's be aware of this so we can move forward, and please don't buy any of this stuff. So what is food design? I want to spend one moment before we get into it to just say what food design is, because I have a sense that many of you, maybe some of you have never even heard of the term food design, and maybe some have heard of it and they think they have an idea, but really, who knows? Some are experts, I know, but just for us to be all on the same page, I just want to spend a few minutes to tell you what food design is so we can all move forward with that. So when I first approached food design, it was a huge mess, and this was about 10 years ago. If you Googled it, you found everything and the opposite of everything, as you know, the internet does. But so the way I made sense of food design was by creating, visualizing a categorization of all the different food design subdisciplines, which highlight the different background disciplines that people have when entering the world of food design. As far As far as I am concerned, all of you here are food designers because all of you are change makers in the field, in a field that has something to do with either food or eating. So you're all food designers. You're all applying innovation to anything that has to do with food. But you all have different backgrounds, so let's put a bit of clarity on that. I'll show you these subdisciplines. We'll go very quickly because unfortunately they only gave me 30 minutes and I have to take this for granted. So the first subdiscipline is food product design. This is the design of all those products that are edible. Food is the material itself, but they're meant for mass production. Design for food is the design of products that are meant to cut, chop, contain, transport food. Design with food is what food scientists and chefs do. It's about designing the food itself, the consistency, the texture, the colors, etc. Food space design is about designing the eating environment as well as the cooking environment. We all know that the lighting in the room, the temperature in the room, the colors in the room all affect our eating experience. So of course, food space design is a subdiscipline of food design. And then we have eating design. Eating design is about designing the entire eating situation. Simplistically is what caterings do. They have the chance to design the whole eating situation, from the space, from the food, to the vessels where the food is traveling, etc. And then we have food service design, so every service that has to do with food. So we have our cafes and restaurants, as well as the compost guy who comes in a bicycle to pick up your compost, your food scraps. So it's any service that has to do with food. And then we have critical food design. Critical food design is basically critical design applying specifically to the food area. And without going into it too much and make it too complicated, critical design has as the only objective that on making people think. So the products and services and events that are created are not really meant to be sold and have customers, but they are meant to make people think. And then we have food systems design, and tomorrow we are going to hear everything about it from our keynote speaker. But simply, let's say that food system design is designing the way various nodes in a system work together. So food services, individual stakeholders, organization, policymakers, whoever, and we are designing how these entities cooperate towards a goal that you have. And this is exactly what you're doing, what you have started doing, and what you will be doing for the next couple of days. And then we have sustainable food design. Sustainable food design is a term that you will find if you Google it. You will find it out there, but to me it's not really a food design subdiscipline. It's more of a food design, it's more of an attitude that should be taken to do any type of design, and of course every type of food design. Sustainability can't be anymore only the extra aspects that makes our project cool, but it has to be, of course, the reason behind every choice that we make towards along the way. So, but to me, the most interesting question about food design is how can food design help? What can food design do? How can I use food design principles and processes to bring about innovation and bring about innovative propositions? I spent the last 7 years, more or less, trying to figure that out. And the answer that I've given to this question is something that I've called food design thinking. So food design thinking is the creative process that is behind food design. It's how food designers design. You might have heard of the term design thinking. Yes, have you ever? Yeah. What we are doing here with these 3 days is a version of design thinking. There are different types of design thinking approaches. You can think of food design thinking as a branch of design thinking that is specific to food design. So you can use a general design thinking process to design anything, from a helicopter to a building to a shoe or a sandwich. But you can use food design thinking only to design anything that has to do with food and eating. So you can't use food design thinking to design a helicopter. So even though you can use a generic design thinking process to design stuff that have to do with food, you can perfectly do that. It has been done forever. What I'm proposing is that if you use a food design thinking process to design anything that has to do with food and eating, your results will be more complex, possibly more innovative, definitely more targeted and more articulate. So the way this works, what I've been doing basically is creating a complete food design thinking methodology, which I'm going to release probably in a month or so. A food design thinking methodology that is made of 6 different phases, and so far everything looks more or less like a normal design thinking process, like a generic design thinking process. But the way my food design thinking methodology is different is because of the methods themselves. Every method I have designed to be unique to a food design process. Every method is designed to only make sense and very much make sense for when you're designing anything that has to do with food. You can be designing a dish, you can be designing a food service, you can be designing an event, you can be designing a whole food system. It doesn't matter, as long as it has to do with food and eating. What is cool to me about, if I may say so myself, about this food design thinking methodology, besides being a discipline-specific design thinking process, is the fact that, first of all, it is human-centered, so we put humans at the center, of course. Secondly, it guides you toward designing systems instead of products from the very beginning. And by doing that, it helps you design for the circular food economy. And because it does that, then it will help you to design more sustainable propositions. How does it do that? Well, again, because the methods are specifically designed for these 4 principles. So I mentioned circular food economy. So this is my version of the circular, or my visualization of the circular food economy. It is heavily based on the circular food economy from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. But when I looked at this from a food design perspective, because that's all I know, I kind of felt stranded a little bit. The materials they don't seem to be organic. And in this half, I don't really know what's going on, just visually. So this was just my way to make things visually clearer, to show every single path. I also added a few extra steps in there. But when I look at these, I see a lot of options for what I can do to deal with the food waste that I produce and that we produce, and how to put them back into the economy. Brilliant. But I don't see suggestions for what we can do. Visually, I don't see suggestions for what we can do to not generate food waste in the first place. So I want you to think about this for a moment. We have a lot of waste, okay? The people who make this waste are people and services. And they are, of course, interconnected to one another. And they're always part of some type of system. The system is more complex. There are organizations and policymakers, etc. But I'm simplifying here. The food designer over there, whom you can identify by the pen on his ear, that's how you identify designers. The food designer, let me take this now, sorry, ooh, this sounds horrible. The food designer can intervene at the, I call it past level. So it can intervene at 3 different levels. At the past level, it's about, by the way, this guy, it's all of you for these 3 days and possibly a lot of time after that. We can design propositions to deal with the food waste that we already have. The stuff that is right now in our bin and the stuff that is already in landfill that has been there for years, etc. We can design propositions that deal with the food waste that we are about to make. So all those products that we have already bought and that at some point, not yet, but at some point will become food waste. So my banana peel skin will become food waste maybe in a couple of hours. This chair might become waste in, I don't know, 10, 15 years. So just think about the fact that everything becomes waste at some point. Even this building, maybe a few centuries, maybe a lot of centuries, but at some point it will become rubbish. So everything that you see, that you wear, everything will become rubbish that we have to deal with, So we can design to prevent that from happening. And then we can also design for the stuff that we don't yet own, and therefore it doesn't already have the chance to become food waste. Does that make sense? An example. If we look at the Environmental Protection Agency food recovery hierarchy, we have source reduction, feed hungry people, feed animals, industrial uses, composting, landfill. Brilliant. But of all of these, only the first one looks at prevention. And by the way, it's the most preferred option. So what I'm saying is that let's try and remember that we have these 3 different levels that we can intervene on. In the next 3 days, you can choose whether to intervene in here, in there, or in there. And I'm not saying that one is better of the other, but I'm saying that they are all 3 equally important. Right now, not in 100 years we'll do this. No, right now. And I say this because my feeling is that from having seen what people have been working towards, like the majority of propositions are around here. But I want you to evenly distribute as much as possible your proposition. Just remember, right, that there are other levels. So I want to focus a few minutes on this part here. I want to give you a couple of ideas, a couple of suggestions for how to design propositions that will make us not produce food waste in the first place, or very, very little. Zero waste is a utopia probably, but maybe we can design so that we'll have, I have one. You're a dear guy, thank you. Plastic? No. Unless it is tap water, I don't know. Right, so I'll put this back. And so I'm going to give you these couple of suggestions, sorry. And and here is where you'll either love me or hate me, okay? So there they are. I'm going to go now, okay? I'm going to give you 2 suggestions. Ready? Okay. Okay. So the first one is veganism. And the second one is minimalism. Okay, let's go. Let's do this. Okay, veganism, no animal products, no meat, no dairy, no eggs. If you think about animal farming, so everything that produces meats, dairy, and eggs, it is the #1 cause of deforestation. It is the #1 cause of CO2, which means that it is the #1 cause of global warming, which despite what your current president says, it is a real problem. And it uses a whole lot of water. Do you know that it takes 2,400 gallons of water to make 1 pound of meat? It only takes 200 gallons of water to make 1 pound of tofu, if you're into tofu. If you consider a plant-based diet, which is like a next stage vegan diet, it's like a branch of veganism, a plant-based diet means no processed food. And processed food, it takes a whole lot of energy because it's processed. It's likely that there are some chemicals in there that your body doesn't really need. And it definitely has packaging, which takes energy and resources and material to be thrown away, because that's what packaging does. It's thrown away. So veganism, you don't have to become 100% vegan tomorrow. You can start with 1 day plant-based diet, 2 days plant-based diet. I myself am a 100% vegetarian, 80% vegan, because I am one of those stereotypical Italian who love pizza, and pizza without cheese makes no sense. So just do what's best for you, right? And and you don't have to do it for the animals if you don't want to. You don't have to have a plant-based diet because of the undeniable benefits to your health. But I urge you to consider doing it for the planet. Do it for the planet. 1 day a week, 2 days a week, whatever you can do, try and consider it. Right, so I'm pretty sure that at some point some of you are thinking, but she's a hippie, okay. So let's just continue. Minimalism. Minimalism is about simplifying your life. It's about owning or buying only things that you absolutely need or that you think are beautiful. To me, on a broader perspective, minimalism is about zero waste and 0 miles. So if I have to buy something, I'll buy local, I'll buy ethical, I'll buy sustainable. Minimalism also means let's try and have the minimum impact. Let's make sure that the things we have the minimum impact, negative impact on the planet. So if I have to buy an apple, I will buy the apple with the minimum amount of miles that it has traveled. Minimalism also means tiny living or owning very little. I live in an 18 square meters apartment, which half the time feels too big. I only have 2 pairs of shoes, 5 t-shirts, and etc. And in my kitchen, I only have 2 forks, 2 plates, a couple of pots, 2 glasses, only what you really need. And 5 years ago, I cut my hair because my hair was nothing that was neither useful nor beautiful to me. I just didn't know what to do with them, so I got rid of them. And a plant-based diet, if you think about it, is like the minimalist approach to eating. Just eating what you need. Do you need the bag of chips? No. Do you need the chocolate Mars bar? Nope. So again, it's about making it at a scale that is good for you, not necessarily going 100% in. The most extreme minimalists are people who own less than 100 things. I assure you that all of us own way more than 100 things, but there's no need to be that extreme. If you're into fashion, by the way, by any means, buy all the clothes you need because they make you happy. But if you're not into hair, maybe you don't need them. Okay. And by the way, in 1970, the designers amongst you will know this, Dieter Rams gave us the 10 principles of good design. And the last one is good design is as little design as possible. What about that? Good design is knowing how to design as little as possible. Food for thought. So minimalism is liberating, really. It's liberating. And as food designers, we can design products or services that are as less as possible, that have the minimum amount of negative impact as possible. But also as designers, we can design in a minimalist way. And we can teach people to make minimalist choices. Not all of them, but maybe some of them. And by now, I'm sure you're saying, yes, she is a hippie. It definitely is a hippie. So yeah, there you have them. These are my 2 suggestions for you for how to design for the future level. And the thing is that I know that saying these 2 words, bringing about these 2 concepts in these type of contexts is very risky. For me, possibly for my career. But I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe they were absolutely useful. And the brilliant thing about both veganism and minimalism is that they are fast. If each one of you took one every 2 choices, you took it with a minimalist approach. And if each one of you devoted yourself to a plant-based diet 2 days a week, we would solve our problems very quickly. Very quickly. I'm not saying that we all have to become vegan and minimalist tomorrow, but it's a fast road because it's all about prevention. It's all about not even buying stuff. And of course, the power is in the consumer's hand. If we don't buy things, they will stop designing them. Unless you really want to have your rice made into cubes. I don't know. So, having said that, I now feel like I can share with you a few examples of what food design can do and what food design has done so far and where we can take it, how we can take it even further. So, what can food design do? Well, food design can open restaurants where every item on the menu is made by food waste from other restaurants. Food design can create installations that make people think about food waste and eating events that make people think about food waste. Food design can create supermarkets that only sells food waste and zero waste supermarkets. There are a few of these now around the world. Food design can create services that allow food services to sell at a lower price the food that they would otherwise throw away. And food design can create services that connect either people, services, or producers with more food than they need with other people or services that would really love to have that food. Food design creates services that connect people with a piece of land and two people that don't have a piece of land but would really like to grow their own veggies, locally, organic. And food design creates services that find people with a piece of land and they go and grow the food in their garden and give the landowner a little bit of that produce and then sell the rest to the local farmer market. Food design can create products that instead of poisoning the oceans and killing animals, become actually food for those animals. Food design can create sewing threads that are made from the byproduct of orange juice. And food design can create a leather-like material that is made from the byproduct of pineapple harvesting. And food design can create food packaging, or a jar of honey specifically, that you can reuse, and that's a key word, reuse, to plant flowers so that bees can come to your flower, and that's going to be your way to say thank you, bees, for your honey. So this is it for me. These were a few examples that showed you what food design what good food design can do. But I think that in the context of this conference, the bigger question here is, what will you do? Thank you.